Right now, somewhere in the financial district of Hong Kong, a 25-year-old clerk is clicking a mouse. That single click just moved $50 million. Not through a major US bank, not through Wall Street, but through a completely invisible, unregulated digital ledger. And within 48 hours, that exact $50 million will be transformed into the titanium casing of a ballistic missile, sitting in a subterranean bunker in Tehran. Most Americans think the United States controls the global economy. We are told over and over that when Washington wants to punish a rogue nation, they just freeze their bank accounts, block their trade, and starve their military. That's what we did to Iran. We slapped them with the heaviest, most suffocating economic sanctions in modern human history. It was supposed to crush them. It was supposed to ground their air force, bankrupt their military, and force their leaders to surrender. So why right now is Iran building one of the most advanced, terrifying missile arsenals on the planet? Why are there suicide drones showing up in the skies over Eastern Europe? Why are there proxy groups suddenly flush with unlimited cash, completely paralyzing global shipping routes in the Red Sea? The answer is something that keeps American intelligence officials awake at night. Because while Washington was busy policing the front door of the global financial system, Iran was quietly building a back door. A massive, untraceable trillion-dollar ghost network. And the scariest part isn't just that it exists. The scariest part is that we have absolutely no idea how to turn it off. This isn't just a story about smugglers or black market oil. This is the story of how an entire nation rewired the global economy to fund a war machine completely in the dark. And to understand how they did it, we have to rewind to the moment the United States made a catastrophic miscalculation. It was supposed to be the perfect economic weapon. The strategy was called maximum pressure. The idea was incredibly simple. Cut Iran off from SWIFT, the international messaging system that banks use to move money across borders. If you can't use SWIFT, you can't sell your oil. If you can't sell your oil, your economy collapses. For a few months, it actually looked like it was working. Iran's currency tanked. Inflation exploded. Politicians in Washington went on television and took a victory lap, claiming the Iranian war machine was finally running on fumes. But inside the Pentagon, analysts were noticing something deeply disturbing. Satellite imagery was showing activity at Iranian military bases that made absolutely no sense. Missile silos were being expanded deep inside mountains. New massive drone factories were popping up. Underground nuclear facilities were working overtime. You don't build hypersonic weapons on a bankrupt budget. It takes billions of dollars of continuous, liquid capital. So where was the money coming from? That's when the CIA and the Treasury Department realized they weren't playing chess against a collapsing economy. They were playing whack-a-mole against a financial hydra. Here is the political chess game nobody is talking about. Iran realized that the US dollar was a weapon, so they decided to stop playing the American game. They didn't just find a temporary workaround, they built an entirely parallel financial universe. Imagine a banking system with no banks, a shipping fleet with no flags, a corporate empire with no CEOs. Welcome to the Ghost Network. It starts on the open ocean. Right now, there is a massive armada of over 300 oil tankers floating in the South China Sea, the Persian Gulf, and the Mediterranean. Intelligence agencies call them the Dark Fleet. These ships don't exist on official maritime registries. They are old, rusting vessels that should have been scrapped years ago. They turn off their GPS transponders so they vanish from satellite tracking. They paint fake names over their hulls. Sometimes, they even spoof their location data, sending out a digital signal that makes it look like they are safely docked in West Africa, when they are actually loading millions of barrels of crude oil off the coast of Iran in the dead of night. They pull up next to each other in the middle of the ocean and transfer the oil ship to ship, blending it so nobody can test its origin. But moving the oil is the easy part. The real genius, the truly terrifying part of this strategy, is how they actually get paid for it. If an Iranian state-owned oil company tries to deposit $1 billion in a European bank, alarm bells ring in Washington immediately. The money gets frozen, and the bank gets fined. So they don't do that. Instead, the Dark Fleet delivers the oil to small, independent refineries in China, often called teapots. These refineries are located far from Beijing, deep in industrial provinces. They don't do business in the West. They don't care about US sanctions. They just want cheap oil. But they still have to pay for it. And this is where things get incredibly dangerous. They don't send the money back to the central bank in Tehran. That would be too obvious. Instead, the money vanishes into a labyrinth of phantom shell companies. Let's say you want to hide $1 billion from the CIA. You don't put it in a giant vault. You break it up into 1,000 microscopic pieces. You create a fake electronics company in Malaysia, a fake auto parts distributor in the United Arab Emirates, a fake consulting firm in Turkey. The Chinese refinery pays the fake Malaysian company for what they claim are electronic components. The Malaysian company then transfers the money to the fake Turkish firm for consulting services. The money bounces across borders, jurisdictions, and currencies so fast and through so many layers of corporate secrecy that the best forensic accountants in the US government simply cannot track it. It is a shell game played on a planetary scale, but that was only the beginning, because even shell companies leave a paper trail. Eventually, some smart analyst at the US Treasury is going to connect the dots and freeze an account. Iran knew this. They knew the Americans would eventually map the network, so they made their next move. And this next move changed everything. They stopped using traditional money altogether. They turned to the digital shadows. We always hear about cryptocurrency being used by tech billionaires or Wall Street speculators. But for heavily sanctioned nations, crypto isn't a speculative investment. It is a matter of national survival. Over the last few years, Iran has become a master of utilizing decentralized digital currencies. They mandate that domestic Bitcoin miners, who run massive server farms using cheap subsidized electricity, sell their crypto directly to the state. They use this untraceable digital gold to pay for imported missile components, drone engines, and military hardware from suppliers on the black market. You can't sanction a Bitcoin wallet that doesn't officially belong to anyone. You can't freeze an Ethereum transaction that bypasses every bank on the planet. And they combined this high-tech digital smuggling with one of the oldest financial systems in the world, the Hawala network. Hawala is an ancient, trust-based system of moving money without actually moving any money. A broker in Tehran contacts a broker in Dubai. The Dubai broker pays a supplier on behalf of Iran. The debt is settled later, off the books, perhaps in gold, or goods, or crypto. No wire transfers, no SWIFT codes, no paper trail, just a handshake and a shadow. This is the trillion-dollar ghost network in action. It is a self-sustaining, invisible loop. Oil flows out through dark ships. Money flows in through dark web ledgers and ghost corporations. And at the end of this pipeline, the result is chilling. It's not just cash sitting in a digital vault. It's highly lethal, advanced weaponry being built at an industrial scale. Now pay attention to what happens next, because this is where the entire American strategy starts collapsing. Washington realized that this money wasn't just staying in Iran, it was being weaponized and exported. If you want to understand the real power games shaping the world without the boring mainstream news filters, make sure to subscribe. Because what the mainstream news isn't telling you is how this dark money is actively rewriting the map of the global power structure. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps doesn't just use this money to build their own military. They are the primary venture capitalists for global chaos. They export this financial model. They fund proxy groups across Lebanon, Yemen, Iraq, and Syria. When a multi-million-dollar American destroyer is forced to shoot down a swarm of drones over the Red Sea, those drones were paid for by this exact ghost network. When a commercial cargo ship is struck by an anti-ship ballistic missile, forcing global supply chains to completely reroute around Africa, that chaos was funded by a shadow transaction in Hong Kong a month prior. The Houthis in Yemen, Hezbollah in Lebanon, militia groups in Iraq, they aren't just ideological fighters. They are heavily armed, highly funded paramilitary organizations operating on a limitless budget of dark money. And it gets worse. This network is so successful that other nations are now using it. Russia, facing its own massive Western sanctions over the war in Ukraine, looked at the Iranian ghost network and realized it was a perfect blueprint. Now Russian crude oil is flowing on the same dark ships. Russian oligarchs are using the same shell companies in Dubai. Moscow and Tehran have essentially merged their shadow economies. They are trading drone technology for fighter jets, paid for in gold and crypto, completely outside the reach of the US Treasury. We are watching the birth of a post-dollar shadow economy. It is a financial alliance of sanctioned states, Iran, Russia, North Korea, and a network of willing buyers who are more than happy to look the other way for a discount on energy. And this is the moment American officials realized they had a terrifying, unsolvable problem. Because you can't bomb a shell company. You can't send a Navy SEAL team to raid a decentralized crypto exchange. You can't blockade a ship that officially doesn't exist on any radar screen. The United States military is the most powerful kinetic force in the history of the planet, but it is entirely useless against a phantom. The Ghost Network is evolving faster than Western legislation can possibly keep up. Every time the US Treasury blacklists a front company in Dubai, 3 more pop up in Oman or Singapore or Macau before the ink is even dry. It is a perpetual motion machine of illicit finance, constantly mutating, constantly finding new cracks in the global system. The United States built its entire geopolitical strategy for the last 50 years on one core assumption that if you control the global banking system, you control the world. The dollar was the ultimate weapon. It could bring a nation to its knees without a single shot being fired. But what happens when your enemies just build a new system? What happens when the weapon no longer works? We are entering an era where economic warfare, the favorite tool of American presidents for decades, is becoming completely obsolete. If a nation can fund a massive hypersonic missile program, arm proxy militias across an entire region, and paralyze global shipping, all while under the most crushing sanctions in human history, then the entire concept of global financial deterrence is dead. The safety net is gone. The rules of the geopolitical chessboard have been rewritten in invisible ink. The United States is still playing by the old rules, trying to lock the front door, while an entire shadow empire marches right through the back. The next global conflict won't just be fought with tanks, stealth bombers, and aircraft carriers. It will be fueled by unseen ledgers, phantom ships, and digital ghosts moving billions of dollars through the ether while the world sleeps. And the frightening part is, this isn't some distant possibility. This is happening right now, today, right under our noses. And if the global financial system can be bypassed this easily, the world may be entering a completely different era of warfare. Because the next global war may not begin with a declaration, an invasion, or a bomb. It might begin with one quiet, untraceable transaction.